On this episode of the After the Timeout podcast, in partnership with the Illinois Basketball Coaches Association, we are joined by Kevin Jensen, head girls basketball coach at Batavia High School. We talked to Coach Jensen about the first 2 weeks of practice, establishing program expectations, player voice in practice, and much more. As always, thank you for listening to the After the Timeout podcast. All right, Coach, we'd like to start out with the opening tip. We just want to get a little bit about, Batavia basketball, the history of the program since you've been in charge, this year's team. Anybody you want to, hype up, all that good stuff?
No, sounds good. I myself am going into year 12 at the helm here. So I took over in 2011. And been kind of going at it ever since. Was assistant with the boys coach or with the boys program for a couple years, and then had this opportunity, and it's been great. Like I said, I coach football and I coach girls basketball. So, for me personally, I got a son and a daughter at home. I kind of enjoy the fact that they get to see me coach, a girls sport and a boys sport, and the family part of it is kind of a big deal for us. Over the years, I think we've had players serve as our, daycare in summers and stuff like that. So it's a big time family thing for us. We've had, some ups and downs in my tenure. We've won 3 regional titles. And felt pretty good about some teams that we've had, coming off last year as well. A couple shared conference championships, and anybody, our conference currently and the conferences we've been at before, we've been a team that's had a chance to be, near the top. But the class, the school that's been in control for quite some time has been Geneva. Sarah does a great job over there. The coaches before her did a great job. So that's always a big rivalry for us. We know our conference will continue to be very good. Our conference was Duquesne was 7 of the top 9 in our sectional last year. Our entire conference is in our sectional. And then the sectional qualifiers were all 4 Duquesne conference schools with us, Wheaton North, St. Charles East, and Geneva. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's something similar to that again. I think there's going to be some really good teams in the conference. I think St. Charles East, coming off their super sectional appearance, is going to be really strong. I know they graduated a couple of seniors that were important players for them, but I know of a couple of younger players that are coming up that are going to be really talented for them. Geneva is going to be strong as always. Wheaton North has some really solid returners. Just curious what they'll look like with a new coaching staff. So I think St. Charles North has some very good players returning. So I think there's going to be, the conference is going to be strong all the way across the board again, which I think makes it really fun. Every time we go to games, there's, good following by parents and students. And, we know they're going to be, for the most part, every single night, real competitive games. As far as what we'll look like going in this year, I think we should be pretty strong. We're going to look different. It's going to be hard to, replace somebody that was 6'5" and go into Wisconsin. That's going to be a very difficult thing. But there are some ways in which our team is going to improve. Some of the things we like to do, we got away from a little bit last year because we wanted to take advantage of having something that most teams don't have. Again, a 6'5" girl that's going to play in the Big Ten. And Tessa did an outstanding job for us, but we'll be a lot more up tempo this year. All right. We're very guard heavy. We have a junior, Brooke Carlson, who is, I think, has 7 or 8 Division I offers right now. Highest one being like a place like DePaul. She's second to none. She's just a stud. Outworks people. She's strong. She's fast. Super athletic. So that's always nice to have that as a point guard. And then there's a couple other players who have been with us that are just juniors, but have been with us since they were freshmen. A couple people in the sophomore class that were with us last year and are taking moves up. So we hope to have a strong year. The moments that we do things and look great over the summer and the fall, I get super excited, but I also have to tell myself, like, I know, even though we have some girls who are returning, we're still going to be young. And that usually means you're going to have a little bit of a roller coaster of, the emotions, the ups and downs. And, we have 2 seniors on our team that, them along with Brooke will, be leaders on our team. But, it's some of the players that are going to get the main, bulk of the stats are going to be some of the younger ones. And again, like I said, even though they're returning, it's just different when you're seniors, as opposed to you're a sophomore and a junior. It's just different. I tell the girls that every year, and I say I'm not sure I can really give you a good reason what happens, but it happened to us last year, for example. I would say some of our returners might be just as, if not more, skilled than some of our seniors last year, but those seniors knew exactly where to be, what to do, and just like went to a whole nother level. And the only difference I can tell you between them last year seniors and previous years was they were seniors. The commitment level, the buy-in, the focus level just went through the roof for them. And I know one of the girls is our boys coach's daughter. And I told him, I'm like, she'll forever be my example of a kid, especially in girls basketball. If you're good as a freshman and sophomore, a lot of times you see those girls elevated. This girl was solid on the freshman team, solid on the sophomore team. Junior year played mainly JV, sprinkled in just slightly into varsity. And by December last year, she was a starter for the remainder of the season for us, on a team that, ended up doing pretty well. And it was just, you just kind of tell she was a coach's kid. She knew what to do. She, wasn't, didn't have to worry about getting her shots, didn't care anything about that, just played real hard, defended the heck out of anybody we put her on. And like that was fun to have those type of kids. And I think we'll hopefully have a nice mix of that this year.
So we wanted to get into the first 2 weeks, first 10 to 14 days that every coach has as their season starts, kind of before that first game or that first tournament or however you want to schedule. But kind of take us through what are the things you really want to accomplish in those 2 weeks? What are things you're looking for in those 2 weeks? And what are some signs that you're doing the right thing?
So, I mean, our first couple of weeks, and I think my assistants would buy into this too, and I'm going to use them a ton to kind of set this tone. Is if we look at the whole season, we get much heavier into worrying about what others do late in the season. It's one thing to prepare for a team in conference, but especially early on, we are all about us. Where it's like we have to take care of ourselves, and there'll be a lot of basic stuff, skill stuff. But to be honest, the first couple of weeks, it's going to be establishing, what we want our identity to be. And we spent really a ton of time on that in the summer. We're kind of made a couple changes of what we want to do defensively, and kind of the attitude, kind of the moxie that needs to come with that. So honestly, like that's going to be our top priority those first few weeks, is to kind of set that culture, set that identity, and just just try our best to be in that position where we are just absolutely relentless on the defensive end. And again, we spent a whole summer doing that, and we got some great buy-in, but that was way back in June, and that's with, no stress, and everything is kind of a little more fun because you go away to a team camp and you got this and that. So I think there'll be moments where it'll feel like a bit of a grind for them. And that's what we're going to be spending time making sure that we can work through and really get after there. So, I honestly, without saying, hey, I want to have this much of our offense put in or this much of that put in, it really our identity is, and we're kind of lucky and say lucky or unlucky, like the way we've set up the schedule, our Thanksgiving tournament isn't until the Friday and Saturday after Thanksgiving. So we actually go quite a while without having our first game at the varsity level. So in a way, I like that we can kind of take our time with what we are going to have in, like, offensively and execution wise, and really put so much of this emphasis on the speed level at which we want to play, the tenacity at which we want to play. We even did things over the summer where we have special practice jerseys. If you were like the player of the day before, you have a special practice jersey, and then you get to wear that. And it's hopefully it'll become a real competitive thing. There was a couple girls that was like, once I won it, she's like, I'm not going to turn it back in because I'm not going to let somebody else win it over me the following day. And those are the types of things we're hoping we cultivate, because I think there's going to be plenty of skill. I'm confident in, what we'll be able to do offensively. But that identity piece is going to be huge for us. And we know that, if we don't have that, it's going to be kind of tough sledding.
That pace is all good until you get that 8 o'clock game day after Thanksgiving, right? It slows you down a little bit. Those games, I remember those days where you get the schedule, you're like, all right, we're playing, and then 8 o'clock in the morning, day after Thanksgiving, you're like, okay.
Yeah. Well, we'll be day after Thanksgiving. We'll be on one of our little white buses super early in the morning, driving down to Morton High School to get ready to play 2 games.
Oh boy, there you go. That's all right. It's all good.
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to build on your identity. Obviously, you've been there long enough now that there's some things that remain pretty consistent with returners, right, and all that, and through the program. But each year's kind of different, as you said, right? When you have a 6'5" girl, that changes the thing. So, how do you go about establishing it in combination with the kids? Do the kids sometimes show you, right? Do you rely on your older upperclassmen, seniors? Do you show them, or does that just kind of change throughout the year and throughout every different team that you have?
I would say it would change a little bit from team to team, but the biggest thing, and as far as like a culture thing or an identity thing, again, we will look different this year, and we're going to try and play, up tempo and press a little more than we have in years past. But one of the things that, and I steal this from our football program. I've, been a part of that for my entire tenure at Batavia, and gotten to see some outstanding success. But so one of the themes I steal from them that we talk a lot about, as we get into the playoffs, for example, in the football season, there's really not a lot of talk of us about win this game to get to week 2 of the playoffs or win this game. It's really, we have messages like, let's have one more week together. So one of the things that we'll talk about and that I'll kind of steal from basketball is just our connections and our connectedness with each other. And we'll do a lot of things like that. And we meet we go into a meeting room before every single practice, and there'll be days where it's like, hey, I just need you to show 30 seconds of this clip, or I just want you to see the outline of the practice today so you kind of get in your heads what's happening. But we'll also use that time to have, a handful of minutes where we do something with the girls just to keep them connected. We just chat about who's doing what in the day. And so we try and put a high priority in our relationships, coach to player and really player to player. For example, last year, as I was doing my exit interviews with all our players and asking them, like, what types of things help make it special and this and that. And, one of the answers that I got from players over and over and over again, especially like our returning players, was how special the seniors made it for them, because they were just so inviting. They were just so inviting about like everything they did. Last year we had a team, we had a few freshmen, few sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Like it was almost like we had, 25% of our team was from each class. But our seniors were they were super inviting. If there was something going on, they made sure every single kid felt welcome and wanted to be there, and they wanted them there. They didn't say, oh, this is just a freshman, they're just here just cause, or anything like that. The relationship piece was huge for us, and I totally believe, and I mean, I could be wrong, there's no like numerical data to support this, but I think that was a huge thing for us down the stretch, and how we did. So that's one thing that I've already talked about with our juniors who might have been with us now for going to go on their third year, and our seniors, is that relationship piece. Is it's not something we just have to like hope that it happens. We have to be purposeful and do things where, hey, it doesn't have to be a basketball thing, but we're getting together. Let's get as many of us together who can do this, or we're working out together. I want to make sure everybody's there. Hey, and the simplest things, whatever everybody has this week, is everybody going to make it to the fall game? Is everybody going to do this? But we work really hard, and we're really purposeful about our relationships, player to player and coach to player. I'm pretty lucky. I got a couple assistants now who are outstanding with that. One of the assistants is, she's kind of moving up from a lower level role to a role with us to the varsity, is actually one of my former players. And she's outstanding with that. And one, I've noticed in my tenure, it's difficult to keep, I've had several female assistants throughout the years. And as they begin making their families, as hard as it is for, to be a coach and a dad, I've noticed it's nearly impossible to be coach and mom, to be quite honest. So, I've had some really nice coaches along the way that, started family, and now they're not coaching anymore. So getting another female coach in there has helped, because again, that just adds something where we can draw into, something that I might not be able to, as a male head coach of a girls team, that, we have more resources to, again, be purposeful and really, really build strong relationships, in every direction, so that when we're hanging out, it can just be, there's not, there's comfort in the room, and everybody can be themselves, and the kid that just wants to kind of sit back and kind of laugh at all the older kids being goofy, and the kid that wants to be loud and goofy can be loud and goofy, but we can all be ourselves.
So I wanted to get into a little bit of something I've been reading on this offseason, is the use of language and the use of common language increasing the player's ability to learn. Would you guys say within your program, obviously from you have a specific language you use, but would you say maybe your varsity assistant uses the same terms, your sophomore coach uses the same terms, your freshman, etc.? Do you have any thoughts maybe on creating a common language to increase player learning?
I mean, I would say we do a little. There's especially offensively, as we try and do things in dribble, with the dribble drive motion, that will use some of the some of the language that I feel like everybody uses with that and use it across the board. So, if I tell some freshman girl, I need you in the slot, she knows exactly where she's going. If I want you in that dunker spot, she knows exactly where she's going. Things like that are really useful to us. I know my varsity assistant is really good at, not so much for, I mean, I wouldn't say this, I don't know if this is where you're going with it, but he loves coming up with things, and he does a lot of our defensive drills, and he'll talk about, drills and the names he gives them, the drills names, so that we can say, all right, hey, you're like, what we need you to execute here to start this defensive possession is you're doing this mousetrap drill. All right. Or you're doing this sprint drill, so that he can have some language that he can be talking to the kids about mid game and be like, hey, you're just executing this drill. That's it. That's all you're executing. So he has a lot of just different, kind of, goofy names he'll bring out for stuff or for positions, and say, I need you to be this. I need you to be that. I need you to be the goalie. I need you to run this like you run the mousetrap drill. I need you to be the interceptor. And things like that. That has helped a bunch, to kind of carry over from a drill where all of us, whether we're the adults designing the drills to the kids running them, eventually you start to just run the drill, not realize, all right, I'm doing this to win a basketball possession and be a basketball player. I'm not learning a drill. I'm trying to learn how to play basketball. So he does a nice job of finding some key words that he'll use within the drill or the name of the drill, so that we can then, when we get to live play, say, all right, hey, that's what you're doing here. Not, hey, do you remember when we were 3-on-2 and we did this and we did that? That he can say, boom, mousetrap, go. All right. And the kids are like, okay, I get what you mean. I get how the leverage I want to keep with the offensive player as the defender. And then that usually has helped us over the last, as the season progresses, to kind of continue to learn and see carryover from a drill to a live play situation.
All right, Coach. So I'm going a little bit off script here. I want to tweak this one, and based on something you said about your assistants and having female assistants. And you said you've lost some along the way. How do we continue to develop that to make it accessible for female coaches? To be able to coach while being moms. Is there things we can do as a whole, as athletic programs, as schools, to try to encourage that? Because that's an important part of the game, and have some of those young female coaches that are really, really good stay even when they start to build their families. Because we've all coached high school. You look around, and a lot of times there's maybe a couple female coaches, but it's more and more now. But how do we continue to build that up to where it makes it possible? Because that's a super important aspect. When it comes to having conversations, mental health, and all that. So what are some things you think we can do as just general, right? Maybe basketball organizations, schools, to kind of promote that and help build those up and have good coaches stay.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I wish I had a great answer for it. I mean, I've had, like I said, a colleague of mine that literally from the moment she was student teaching here and then was hired here full time, like she volunteered and then was an assistant for me for several years and just did a great job. And still she stays connected to our program. But as she started her family, she's like, I'm not going to be able to, do both the way that I'd like. My varsity assistant, when I started 12 years ago, She was great. She was our school psychologist. So talk about having, that as something you can rely on in your program, was outstanding. And again, then she's started her family, and just it wasn't going to work. And what I'm learning from some of them is it's the combination of, the jobs that they have as wives and moms, and sometimes the jobs that the dads and husbands have, and how those puzzle pieces work together. You know, coming from, a family where my dad was in teaching and was a principal for 25 years in St. Charles, and seeing the dynamic of, families that might have the husband and the wife, mom and the dad, or whatever it may be, like both of them are in education. Sometimes you'll see where, that pattern might allow for, the female coach to coach longer because their schedules work in such a way that they can manage that. If it were me, and I think we do this, because we put a value on it, and teaching and coaching can be difficult, is getting a hold of those youngest teachers, and then especially, reaching out to the female teachers and trying to get them involved right away. One, because then it just becomes something that's a part of their everyday thing. Like for me, it's hard for me to separate my coaching life and my teaching life. It's just, to me, it's kind of one big, one big thing that I do that's my job. Like, I don't really think of it in two pieces. Like, it's hard for me to think of doing one without the other, with the two sports and the teaching. But I can also say I'm lucky enough that I live in town. I have a wife who knew what she was getting into when we got married, 17 and a half years ago, that I was going to be coaching, and my hours are horrible. And there'll be times where, I'm leaving before anybody else gets up in the morning, and coming home after everybody's gone to bed. So that can be an odd combination. But the biggest thing I would be doing is going to the youngest teachers and trying to get them involved in anything they can, and showing them how, really how that creates some connections to the kids that you might not normally have. And it doesn't always have to mean that they're coaching or leading a team. If they can just get involved with the program, and just, kids can see them outside of just as a teacher and another trusted adult, and somebody that they can go to and be like, hey, I've seen Miss so-and-so at games, and maybe she's doing the scorebook at all these times. I don't see her every day at practice, but I know that she's there supporting me and my friends. That means something to me, and that's another trusted adult. That's just that's something I would be really pushing towards. I know there are a lot of schools, and we're included in that there are some of these roles that there's been community members who have done them forever, and they're kind of icons within, the like a basketball or a football setting. Everybody's got people that, like, they've been the announcer, or they've been the scoreboard operator for 20 or 30 years and things like that. But, whether it's a supplemental role like that, or is seeing if they can volunteer even part-time, I would be talking to every brand new teacher about, just kind of those benefits. Quite frankly, to me, like, I don't feel like I would have the connections with kids in classrooms near as much if I wasn't coaching something. Even the kids I don't coach, like, I get linked up with them somehow, because, all right, well, they're friends of somebody I do coach, or they know I coach, so they see that relationship different. And it's hard to put your finger on what that means without doing it. But I think some of the younger teachers, as they would get there and see the benefits of that, I think some people would be like, yeah, all right, if I'm volunteering for a little bit, or I'm coaching a lower level, yeah, if we tried to map it out, our hourly rates, it would not be something to brag about. But the benefits to me, and I think the younger teachers, especially our female teachers, it would go such a long way for them. And then we'd see that return with the kids. I mean, like you said, I mean, the mental health piece of it, just knowing you have the more trusted adults around to go to, that it's not that an adult around them is not trustworthy. They just don't know that they're a trusted adult because they don't have that link to them. And again, coaching a female sport, more of those that we can have in there, the better. I know I can say with a couple of girls who are, like being recruited, and they'll talk about going to a campus and say, oh, this is really cool. I went to this school and the head coach is female and several staff members are female. And it's neat. And they they're not, I hope they're not trying to say anything about me, but they're like, I've never been coached by a female. So it's really kind of cool to see that. And I've heard that a couple times over the last, few seasons, like, you know what, some of these kids are right. Like, I mean, they're great girls basketball players. They might play multiple sports and they could be going through their whole lives and never had a woman coach them. And then it's like, well, that doesn't mean that anybody's doing anything better or worse, but there are relationships that are just going to be different when it's, adult male and a female player versus adult female coach and a female player. There are just some things that are going to be more comfortable.
All right, so I'm gonna follow up on this, and this is kind of my original question. So now you coach football and basketball, right? And you mentioned your wife knew what she was getting into, but obviously most people know basketball coaches put in a lot of work, but football, there's a whole bunch of stuff, right? Like you get into the playoff time, you're going to scout this team, and you said you have meetings on Sundays, right? Because there's all kinds of stuff you got to get together, because you got nine games, right? And
yeah,
those all 9 games are important, and then you kind of go into basketball. So how do you go about? And I think this is the biggest challenge for everybody, right? Myself included. John with his school and things like that. How do you go about balancing that, right? Yeah, we got to put our best into football, basketball, but then we also got to have time for our family, right? There's things that come up. So is that using your assistants maybe when you're kind of overlapping? Is it maybe giving strategic days off that you think, well, we should practice, but I got to do this stuff. How do you go about that family coaching balance?
I would say I still struggle with it, but I've gotten better with it over the years as my kids have gotten a little older, and the biggest thing is honestly, I'm gonna keep repeating myself, but being honest kind of with myself and the people around has, like, if I can, take a deep breath and say, all right, it's the same within, trying to micromanage something too much in a practice and being like, all right, I'd really like to do one more drill, but we have had 85 minutes of just an unbelievable practice. We could finish with our shooting drill and walk out of practice, and it will be one of the best days that we've had. Or we could do this last 10-minute segment that I had on the plan as a maybe if we have time to. And we just, and the paranoid coach in me says, well, we better do that drill. And then that drill's a train wreck. And then you feel like you ruined the whole day. On a bigger scale, I have to remind myself of those things where it's like, you know what, should we get together and do a shoot around in the morning before this? Should we add this? Should we add this? Should we do more time? Should we do this? Should we do that? And I have to remind myself, all right, in this case, more is not necessarily better. Do we trust what we've prepared the kids to do? Yes. Well, then let's let all of us, adults included, kids included, enjoy their time as their time, and you have an afternoon with nothing, you have a morning with nothing, whatever it is, like, let that be their time. They want to get together, and we encourage, like, we'll do like a team breakfast, things like that. But I have to continually remind myself, like, yeah, I would like to do this, I would like to do that, but there's got to be a balance. The kids have got to feel like some of those minutes of the day belong to them. I'll get the same response from my wife. It was like, look, you can be as busy as you want, but she's like, we got to have a plan for what's going on and when we have time to do things with the kids. As my kids have gotten older, one of the things that I feel like I always kind of have, but like our family is just like basketball games, football games are just our family events. My wife, I didn't share it with the girls yet, but my wife took a picture Friday night during the sophomore football game. Weather's horrible, and she's sitting 2 rows behind my 10-year-old daughter, and my 10-year-old daughter is sitting with 2 freshman girls basketball players. And it's things like that where like that balancing act is easier to do because this, for me personally, this overlap between family time and like coaching and teaching time will overlap. And I don't see that as that was just a football time. That was a family time too, because these 15-year-old girls gave my daughter attention, and she thought it was the coolest thing in the world. My wife could then kind of sit there and relax and be like, okay, I can kind of watch a little of this sophomore football game. My 13-year-old son is on the sideline as a ball boy for us. Things like that. That's how I make it for me personally to work. And then like with our girls, I know the balance of like, for example, like as playoffs start for football, there's a lot of years where I'm coaching both at the same time, and I set up basketball practices later in the day, and it's, I'll go 2 hours of this, 2 hours of that, then get home. But with our kids, we try and promote like how much they're going to support each other in and out of their own programs. So, if football goes real far with something, there might be a day where we have a football game and a basketball game the same day. And we've had times where we've been on a snowy football field to watch a state semifinal and then go across town and go play, a Thanksgiving tournament. But we try our best as much as like, all right, each team is trying to win those games. But for the kids that I'm around, especially my basketball girls, I try and be like, look, we're advertising this. This is a high school event that you'll never ever get back. This is something where I don't want this to be like, hey, you're doing basketball all day. No, you're with your best friends that you play basketball with. You're cheering on your classmates that you've been going to school with forever at a football game. And what's the one thing better than do that? Oh, then you also get to play your own game that evening, or maybe the order of those games are switched. So, to me, part of that balancing act is, whether it's if the basketball piece or the football piece or the school piece, if some of that can feel like it's not work, like it's something that is just you're enjoying time with being with people that you love being around, that balancing act becomes a lot easier for me. So I guess that's the part that I in a roundabout way I'm trying to say that, like, if some of these things that go into that don't, isn't just like, this is work, this is a grind, it's easier to balance because you almost feel like you're putting something on each end of the scale. You're not just putting all the weight on one end of the scale and flipping it over. So for me personally, that's been the best. And I try and kind of go that way with especially with the girls, and promote that, like, we're with people we love being around. So, that's what we want to do and focus on when we're together. And then when we have time, that's your time, I try and let them be hands off, and I'll learn later after the fact of how they got together for this and for that. And it's like, we try and like guide that, but it's even better when, they choose to do a couple of those things together when they have their own time. Better than me forcing it.
All right, so let's get in a little basketball here with our halftime adjustments. I'm going to pose you a scenario and kind of see how you do it. All right, so you're going in the first half. You're playing a team maybe that is really mixing up defenses, right? Maybe their man, their zone, whatever zone it may be. they press, they do this, they do that. And your team is kind of struggling at that. Maybe it's something, right, you haven't seen for a while, right? Maybe every team you've seen has played strictly man to man, and now this team's kind of throwing some junk at you or different things. Um, you know, you go into halftime. One, when you start talking to your coaches, kind of what do you talk about, and then what are you trying to relay to the girls to help them manage that, and and improve that second half to make those adjustments.
I would say, so my patience has improved dramatically, in the last several years. And so it helps that our coaching staff will try and make sure that, one, the first couple of minutes of that half, like, I really believe, like, I got to give those kids space for a moment. There's whether things are going unbelievably outstanding or things are going really rough. There's going to be some kids in that locker room or in that meeting room that need, at least 60 seconds of my voice not happening. Like, I think that that's a fair thing. I'm one that you're on a sideline. You're going to be hearing my voice a lot. It's like, all right, we'll decompress there. And so our coaches, we'll talk about what's going well, what might be going poorly, or places we need to improve upon. All right. And the goal is, in our quick little meeting, is, can we come up with one, maybe two, but one or two things that we can talk to the girls about, just to take some pressure off them. I would feel like, I'm sure you can already tell, like, if I could go on forever and talk about just about anything, and I'll just random. I'm the end of the spectrum that socially awkward is. I'm the type of person that doesn't shut up. But what I've learned at the halftime is, the more I say, the worse it's going to get. If I go in there and be like, all right, hey, when we see this, we want to do X, Y, Z. But then when we see this, we want to do A, B, C. But then if we also see this, now we're going to do 1, 2, 3. And now they have 9 things in their head, and we're not going to do anything better. But if I can go in there and say, all right, if we can start with this action, for example, of our dribble drive, Brooke or whoever, I'm like, you should know instantly, based on what this second girl does, they're in man or zone. The way we're coming down the court, if they were just kind of loosely playing man, they might be standing there and you're like, I can't tell if they're in their 2-3 this possession or in their man possession. So if I can tell them, hey, let's just start with that through cut, and then you immediately know what you have. If she's following you through, we know we have a man-to-man, we can continue on. If she's not, we can, look to attack a short corner, or, whatever we want to do there. But I feel like, if we can trust our preparation and what we've gotten ready for, and just give one conceptual idea, maybe a second, instead of trying to be like, all right, hey, when they see this defense, here's these 2 sets we want to do, here's these 2, and all of a sudden they have 16 things running through our head. If we're not confident, we're going to play slower. If we're, unclear of something, we're going to play slower. And I don't think we're going to go and like, if we're trailing, the comeback piece is not going to happen there. So, I mean, to me, if it's something where we know we're confused, maybe we're a little frantic, maybe we're trailing, we're just not executing as well as we could, I want to do everything in my power to, one, just kind of refocus, let everybody take a deep breath, and hopefully give a limited, concept to say, all right, this is what I'd like for us to move on. I know I've done it wrong over the years, where I've said, 7 things, and it's like, well, we talked about 7 things at halftime, we didn't get any of them right. Well, yeah, because we talked about 7 things. We should have talked about one thing and said, do this one thing right, and we have a chance to climb out of a hole, or pull away from somebody that might be giving us some fits that we thought we had a better matchup against.
So I wanted to get into a little bit of player voice, whether it's in practice or games, or as you just talked about, halftime or pregame or wherever. What is the balance for you? And if a kid comes to you in practice and says, coach, this does not look good, or they're coming to you in a game and like, coach, this is happening. kind of take us through your connection with players and their voice and their say.
I honestly, I try and give them as much as they can. I've said it with kids that I coach in football. I've said it with kids I coach in basketball. And I'll tell them, like, I'll have ideas. I'm like, you guys are out there. You know, if you see something or you have a comfort level, like, you can tell me. It doesn't mean that we will go with it every time, but if you come off saying, hey, I think we might be able to use one of our pick and roll plays on this. All right, well, let's give it a shot. You know, hey, can we adjust our press like this? Okay, let's give it a shot. I think that over the years is a, for me, at least personally, can be a tougher balancing act. Just because of my own, like, you know, issue as a person where if I'm can be a control freak and want to micromanage everything. But I've realized when those kids are making some of the choices in what they're doing, they feel even better about it. I know, like, for example, you know, I mean, it's no secret. I've stolen the idea from other coaches where they're like, let the kids decide on absolutely 100% of the stuff that doesn't matter. Like, you know, hey, school tomorrow, game day. Do you guys want to dress up or wear your travel gear? I don't care, but I like them doing something so everybody in school knows we have a game. Like, they're all wearing their Batavia girls basketball hoodies or travel gear, or they're dressing up extra special. You know, like if it, is a boys team, it might be shirts and ties. The girls teams, I don't draw a line in the sand anywhere because I don't know where that line would be, but we just say dress up or wear our travel gear. And I like that, but in this, essentially, like, I don't care what they do. But they like making that choice. So things like that. We're on a road game. If we have, years where we've had some alternate jerseys, do you guys want to wear red on the road game or black on the road game? I don't care. You guys choose. It's your team. But even those tiny things, they matter to them. And then they are, in a positive way, hopefully empowered enough to be like, hey, we get to choose some stuff. I can talk to coach about something that is more of a basketball related thing that actually matters X's and O's wise or something like that. And boom, they feel more confident. They feel more like they're more bought into what they're doing. And it might be, something like a matchup. Some girl says, look, I know you're worried about me being in foul trouble, but let me stay on their best player. I want it. I want the assignment. I remember a senior last year, we were working on the, different girls who were going to guard people's best player. And it was like, all right, we're going to practice 3 of you are going to practice like you're guarding, so-and-so from this school or that school. And finally, one of the girls was like, I know I'm in this rotation, but I want the matchup. It's like, I want it. I will handle it. I'll stay out of foul trouble. I'll do everything right. And it was like, that gave me confidence. Like, to hear that from a player is like, okay, well, that gave me confidence that you're so comfortable with us that you would say this. You're so confident in yourself that you would say this. I'm like, all right, I feel like we're doing something right where, you guys feel like you can have these conversations with us. I will say with that, I think there are moments where, we have to realize that, oh, we might have overstepped our bounds, and a player might say something like, oh, look, I get it. Like, I want to do that too. But, right now in this situation, like, I need us to try, I need us to do, X. And, I think if there's that nice balance where they feel like they do have voice, but when I need to be like, look, if we're going to go down, we got to go down with something that I believe should work versus, something else. I think when I allow them to have that voice, but say, no, hey, we got to go right here. This is the choice right now. I know, you said about this, but this is the choice. We're going to stay in this defense, or we're going to look at this or stay with this matchup. I found that I just think the girls will buy into that more when they know, okay, he does give me a voice, but there are also some times where, all right, it's my turn to listen, as a player. But I have to ask a player this, but I think I've been much better at that as I've gotten older and a little more patient with myself. a little bit more self-respect, or, being able to kind of analyze and evaluate myself as a coach. I think I've done better with that, where I've let, kids have a choice in what's going on and give me feedback of what's going on the court. Like, I can see it from my side and diagnose and have a pretty good idea, but you're out there, I'll trust what you have to say. Over the years, there's been lots of situations where it's coming out and it's like, all right, girls, our 3 favorite ATOs. Like, we got a timeout. Okay. What do you like? Hey, let's do this. Done. Got it. We're in. We know we can execute these 3 in our sleep. You guys pick this one because you love it. Great. Done. Got it. Hopefully those are the things that they see and feel, and that makes them more comfortable. And again, to me, it all goes back to that relationship piece. Like, if we didn't have a great relationship piece with, like, the player to player and player to coach, like the player voice, it wouldn't happen. And they wouldn't feel comfortable enough to do it. Or if they did say something and I didn't have the good relationship with them, then I would take it, probably in a bad way. And so, to me, it all circles back to that.
So as we get into our last 2 segments, the first one we called 30-second timeout. It's your platform to talk about whatever you want. You can talk about yourself, your family, something that's important to you outside of sports. You could turn it and ask Todd and I a question. Wait, this is kind of your time to kind of talk about whatever you'd like.
Well, first, I feel like I got to make a shout out. I told Liza Fruin I'd wear my Tennessee gear today. One of our former players is on staff at Tennessee with Kelly Harper, and sent me a video. I texted her, I'm like, Knoxville's got to be nuts today. Like, before the game even ended yesterday, she sends me a video from on the field at the end of the game. So I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, that has to be nuts down there. So
in fact, they were carrying the goalpost to the bar. I saw they were just
they were
just walking downtown with it.
Oh yeah, that was a crazy ending, crazy game. That's what's so fun about college sports, and just, I don't know, amateur sports as it is. You get these town and state followings, and sometimes people they don't even have any ties. This is why you're there. Well, this is just what we do on a Saturday, or what we do on a Friday. We come and see the high school game, or we come and see the college game. So that was pretty cool. I don't know, some of you guys question, you're talking about like the balance and relationships and things like that. For me, as I look at like my family and just what it's been like for me, and I don't know if like everybody who's been around me kind of knows this, but so 2 years ago I had a surgery, a stomach surgery. I've actually lost about 215 pounds in the last 2 years. So all these little things where you talk about like balance and, relationships and things like that I've mentioned, like, I know that I've drastically improved all of them because of, being able to take care of myself better than I had for the previous years. And we talked about like, what do we do with younger coaches or this or that? And, and not everybody had an issue like I did, but like, coaches that want to coach for a long time, if we're not healthy ourselves, we're going to really struggle. I know I was in a position where, like a lot of people, the whole like pandemic stuff was just killing me. Like I got into a job because I like dealing with kids every day. I like just interacting with people, and that part's gone. I know I was down in the dumps, probably not as bad as some, but I was not happy. And, I was physically in a very bad place. And, I've gotten myself a lot healthier. And in turn, when I talk about, learning how to be patient or have better relationships with, players or other coaches or anything like that, that has been drastically better over the last couple of years. And it's just because of some choices that I made. So if there were young coaches out there that, can hear anything, and some of them probably have, way better habits than I had as a younger guy. But as coaches, if we're gonna work what almost feels like two full-time jobs, we're teaching full-time, and then those of us who really love the coaching part of it, we're putting a lot of extra hours in outside of practices and games just because we love doing it. But if we're not taking care of ourselves and making sure we're healthy individuals, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm like, some specimen of physical fitness, but I can tell that, I'm able to do things in a better way and be a better coach, a better teacher, a better dad, a better husband. That I've kind of taken care of some of my own health things, where it was like, I even remembered like talking to the girls being like, the school was starting to let us do open gyms and stuff, in a very limited way. And I had to tell them like, look, I'm going to be gone for 2 or 3 weeks because I'm like, we're just getting into things. I felt so guilty that I felt like I was abandoned. I'm like, but I have to do this because it's hopefully going to turn around like, my life for the long run. And that's kind of been a huge thing where, I feel like all the things that I think are important in coaching and relationships and all that improved because I took care of myself better. And if there's anything that a younger coach can learn from me, it would be that far more than it would be any X's and O's or anything magical. I mean, I don't do anything magical out of practice. Anything that I do that's really cool, I stole from somebody else.
All right, let's go into our quick hitters, rapid fire, random questions. Answer anywhere you feel choose. College football or NFL? What are you leaning? What do you lean towards? I mean, obviously you coach football, so that's probably a tough question, but usually somebody leans one way or the other.
I love college football. I love bouncing back from all these different games, seeing weird like teams that run so many different styles. I mean, I know there's different styles in the NFL, but at some point it starts to all look the same. And I love college. I know NFL is the best of the best. If I wanted to sit down and just watch one game end to end, NFL is great, but a Saturday full of college football is just really, really tough to beat.
All right, we got chocolate or vanilla ice cream.
Oh, our local ice cream place. I've started eating something different because they made fun of me because I would go in and get pralines and cream, and they said, Coach Jensen, you got to stop getting that. That's the old people ice cream. So I probably vanilla, and I'd add the chocolate to it.
Oh yeah, there you go. The old school twist is always good, right? You got the twist.
Oh yeah,
twist cone.
Yeah.
That's the yeah. All right, are you a off-ball screen guy or an on-ball screen guy?
I am more an on-ball screen guy. I love the off. Like if it's an off screen, it's never a single. It's a screen, the screener. But love me some ball screen and some some handoffs.
All right, for you, hardest action to defend.
You know what? This one, when you guys sent me this stuff and I'm looking at this, I'm like, I wanted a great answer. You know what? It's not even an action. It'd be like, the teams that are super patient. It's like, where it's like they're not going to take that bad shot. I think of like the Wheaton South team from 2 or 3 years ago that Rob took them to a super sectional. They'd run their motion. There was nothing fancy. He wouldn't call a set, but those girls refused to take a bad shot. And it was almost like, I tell my girls, if we're playing really good defense, eventually the offense is just going to give us the ball. They're just going to give it to us. They're going to take a horrible shot or they're going to just turn it over. But those teams that are that patient, those are ones where they test our patience because it's like, all right, we better go for a steal because I can't defend this anymore.
All right, we're going to go hats here. Are you if you're going to go wear a hat, are you going to go like winter hat? Are you going to go maybe a backwards hat? You go forwards hat, brim curved? What kind of hat? What kind of hat are you rocking?
I'm a curved brim and I'm a hat forward kind of guy. It's got to be a fitted hat because as a bald guy, I don't want a little crescent moon tan line in the back of my head. Yeah. A lot of our coaches around us go bucket.
What about, I was going to say the bucket hat in the summer is key if you're coaching football, right?
Yeah, a lot of times what I do is I have a bag with me. I keep sunscreen on because I also I can't be tan and then have a white hat, a white dome, because then I think I look like a giant pimple. So I'll kind of rotate going no hat with some sunscreen, and then when it gets really middle day, super hot and sunny, then I'll put a ball cap on for a little bit.
There we go. There we go.
The bucket, I think I look weird in a bucket hat, so I have a hard time with those.
All right, last one. Favorite place in Batavia to go, whether it's for food or fun or wherever.
Well, I'd have to give a shout out to our the Riverside Pizza. That's kind of like my go-to spot. Our coaches will wind up there after games sometime. There's parents and families that will go there that we'll run into. They got great deals throughout the week, but I like going there so much that my kids are like, is this where we're going again? But I walk in there and they'll be like, oh, you want to, this is what you want to drink? I'm like, yes. They don't even have to ask. So it's kind of one of those just, home places. I know the people there, they know me, and that's a good spot for me and my family.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you jumping on with us today. It was a very informative episode about a variety of topics that I know coaches are going to look forward to listening to as we all start to prep to get into our season.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the After the Timeout podcast in concert with the Illinois Basketball Coaches Association. Please remember to give us a 5-star rating wherever you may listen. For more show content and upcoming episodes, follow us on Twitter at After the Timeout and subscribe to our podcast for upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.